Hi everyone, my name's Hazel and I'm an author and a PhD student, and today I am going to be, I guess, talking about, discussing, reviewing Sia's film Music. I'm sure you've all heard about it, and I've actually already made a video about this film, so it was kind of about the trailer, like first thoughts about the trailer, as well as discussing the initial reaction from Sia, the autism community, and people who aren't autistic as well. And I did say in the video I wasn't sure if I was going to watch the film just because I didn't personally fancy going out of my way to get offended. However, after some more thinking on it and looking at what other people have said on Twitter, because there is prone restraint in this film, I decided to watch it, which sounds a bit weird, but I have never been prone restrained before, so I have no trauma associated with it. So whilst I did find this film offensive, I wasn't traumatized by it. So that's why I was like, okay, well, let's watch it for the people who maybe have trauma associated with prone restraint, so I can tell you about the film and why you shouldn't watch it, essentially. So like last time, I'm going to do my makeup at the same time, because if I don't do something at the same time while talking about this, I will probably cry. So that's what we're gonna do. So I am autistic, and like I said at the start, I'm an author, I'm also a writer. So whilst I am going to be looking at this film from a person with autism's perspective, I am also going to be kind of looking at it from the perspective of a writer. So my writing credentials, if you're interested to see how like qualified I am, I have a degree in creative writing where I focused on novels and screenwriting. I have a master's in creative writing for which I focused on novel writing. I have a master's in script writing for which I focused on feature films, television series and video games. And I'm currently doing a PhD in creative writing, which is about how mental health can be used in science fiction novels to decrease mental health stigma in countries like Japan and South Korea, where mental health stigma is quite high. And like I said, I am also a published author. So I guess with all of that taken into account, I am a professional writer, but I don't really like calling myself that, just because I feel like if you want to be a writer, you can be a writer. You don't have to go to university for it. But I guess I have been trained to be a writer at 3 different universities in the UK, and I have the student debt to prove it. So I am also going to be reviewing this film from a writer's perspective at the same time. And I have also seen the entirety of Dance Moms. That may not seem relevant right now, but it's going to become relevant later on in the video towards the end. And also, trigger warning now, I am also going to be talking about suicide during this video. So I will put the timestamp on the screen from when I start talking about it to when I stop talking about it. I'm only going to talk about it for that duration, I'm not going to mention it again. But if it's going to be too triggering for you, you can either skip this section entirely, or you can just peace out now, not watch the video at all. That's completely fine. So yeah, I think that's everything I want to say, so let's get started. So before we even start talking about the film's writing or the representation of autism in it, I feel there's something else we also need to talk about. I'm not going to talk about it loads, just because I'm not a person of colour, obviously. But in addition to the blatant ableism in the film, there is also some racism. So apparently Maddie Ziegler's character, Music, is mixed race. Maddie Ziegler is not mixed raced. However, they still decided to take the decision to make her play a mixed race character. So not only someone who isn't autistic playing someone who is autistic, but someone who isn't mixed race playing someone who's mixed race. I don't know. But in the first number of the song, she has cornrows in her hair. Her hair is in cornrows. I'm not really sure what else to say since I'm not a person of colour. I'm not sure what their thinking behind this decision was. Was it like, oh well, we're already going to hell with having this non-autistic girl play someone who is autistic, so let's also, you know, just really go the whole hog, bring it all the way home, and also ask her to play someone who's mixed race? I don't know, I'm not really sure what else to say about it other than ableism isn't the only thing wrong in this film. In addition to the bad script writing, there is also some racism. So yeah, I'm not really qualified to speak on it, but I didn't think a video about this film should be made without highlighting that, hey, that happens too. So yeah. The next section we're going to talk about is the song. And I'll be honest, songwriting, not really my area of writing. I can't write a song to save my life. But I would say, particularly as I've seen a lot of musicals and listened to a lot of musical soundtracks, these songs aren't really musicals, and this is supposed to be a musical. They're not really musical type songs, these are definitely pop songs. And whilst there's nothing wrong with that in practice, I feel there is a bit of a problem with at least one of the songs. So generally the song part, for those of you who haven't seen the film, it's kind of like the songs are inside music's head. This is how she views the world, how she views herself, how she views everyone around her. And I kind of like this imaginary world she has going on. I like the idea of it. However, first of all, music doesn't stim in her world. So at the start of this first song, which is called Oh Body, she does stim slightly in it, but in comparison to what she's like in the rest of the film, it's literally nothing in comparison. And pretty much the rest of the songs as well, she doesn't stim at all. So maybe I'm looking too deep into this, and I probably am. But it kind of gives the impression to me that in her head, her idealised version of herself doesn't stim and therefore isn't autistic. So I feel, whether it was intended or not, that there is an underlying subtext of autism is a problem. That's what I kind of get from it. Like I said, that's probably too deep a read into this. This is not GCSE English, Hazel. But I felt like it did have that underlying subtext to it. And also in this song, Oh Body, there are some interesting lyrics, and I'm going to read a few of them to you. So the chorus of this song, it just repeats oh body over and over, but then the final line of the chorus is oh body, don't fail me now. And I can't help but feel that it's a comment on how Maddie's body is obviously not the same as an abled body and is failing her in a way, maybe. Then the verses are kind of similar. In my dreams, my body does not control me. My imagination sets my spirits free. Gotta leave into fantasy cause reality is too much for me. So whilst the overall sentiment of the song, like the song is fine, but just in terms of the context it's in, I'm a bit confused, and I do feel like it kind of gives this underlying subtext. Again, I'm probably reading too much into it, but I feel like it does give the underlying subtext of music being autistic is a problem, not only for the people in her life because Zoo, her older sister, doesn't really want to look after her, but also for music as well. So yeah, it's not off to a good start with the lyrics of the opening number, which is also the weirdest opening number for a musical I've ever heard as well. The next thing we're going to talk about, which is the restraint section, so please skip ahead, I'll put a timestamp on the screen if you don't want to hear about the restraints. First of all, there is no warning for the restraints being in the film. Apparently Sia, I don't stalk her Twitter so I can't confirm or verify this, and she's also deactivated her Twitter account so I definitely can't confirm or deny this. Apparently said she will be putting warnings in the film, or rather at the start of the film, to say perm restraint isn't what you should do, it's bad practice, it's dangerous. So these perm restraints shouldn't have been in there in the first place, but at least, you know, she was going to put a warning, which, you know, is the smallest thing she could have done to rectify everything, but it's not in there. I can't say for certain if it's not in there on other viewing platforms. I rented the film on YouTube, so maybe on other platforms it's available on. It does have those warnings. I didn't fancy giving loads of money to see it and renting it on different platforms, so maybe if you've watched it on a different platform it does have that warning in. But the YouTube one certainly has no warning in, unless it was in the description box. I didn't see it when I was watching the film, but maybe I just missed it. But as far as I'm aware, there is no warning about the perm restraint scenes for the YouTube release of the film. I guess that's what it's called, the YouTube release. So if you're watching this and you're not autistic and you're not sure what perm restraint is, so it's essentially when an autistic person of any age, not just a child, has a meltdown and they can become a danger to themselves and a danger to other people during it. So perm restraint is essentially you wrestle said autistic person down to the ground, climb on top of them and hold their hands down so they can't hurt themselves or hurt other people. So whilst they're trying to stop them from hurting anyone, so the idea of a perm restraint is fine because it's to help them, what actually happens when you climb on top of someone is they usually can't breathe properly because, you know, you're sat on their back, sort of. Now in the film, so Maddie Ziegler, who plays music, is now 18, but this film was actually made quite a while ago if you weren't aware. It was when she was like 15, 14, so she was probably fully grown by then, so she probably would have been okay, and there are also probably people on set who could have stopped it if it got too much for her. But there have been deaths directly caused by prone restraint, where adults get on top of children who are like younger than 5 years old, who are having a meltdown, and have killed them because they've suffocated. It's such a dangerous thing to do, and my mum is she is autistic, but she's also an autism practitioner here in the UK. So I asked her, okay, well, what do you do when an autistic person does have a meltdown? Because I've never had one, she's never had one, my younger brother, who's also autistic, has never had one. So I was like, what should you do if they do become a harm to themselves and other people? Well, first of all, you should try and get everyone else away from the area to stop them from hurting anyone else. If there's no one else there, they can't hurt them. So if you're at home, there's loads of people in the room when it happens, get everyone to leave the room. Or if you're in public, whether you're outside or in a shop or something, try and get people to vacate the immediate area. And then you should also remove any objects or obstacles that could be dangerous for said person. So for example, I don't know, you're in a kitchen and there's a knife on the side. Put it away so this person can't hurt themselves with it. And then at that point you should probably try to just restrain their hands. You don't have to get them down on the ground, literally just try and grab their hands to help them to calm down. You don't have to climb on top of them, okay? Like, you don't have to, just grab their hands. And now, final warning, I'm about to talk about suicide. There are a lot of dangerous implications in this film showing this, because at no point is this technique in the film. It's done twice in the film, first by Ebo, Zoo's neighbour, who kind of knows how to look after music somewhat, and then by Zoo, who is Kate Hudson's character. She then does it later on. However, no one at any point in the film condemns its usage, so it kind of says to someone who isn't aware that this is a bad thing, that this is okay to do. Now, when I said I've never really had a meltdown before, I lied, because I do have meltdowns, but they aren't like this. I tend to go very still and very quiet, and I don't really want to move. So I do generally do like the exact opposite of what happens in this film. However, if I was to have a meltdown like this, let's say for example in public, and my mum didn't know what to do, what would happen if maybe, let's say I was in a shop and one of the staff members, or just even a member of the public, saw what was going on. They came up to my mum to say, hey, what's going on? She's like, I'm not sure, but she's autistic. And then this person's like, ah, okay, she's autistic, she's having a meltdown. And I've seen this film where they do this prone restraint when they have a meltdown, so I therefore should do that on them as well. Now, I'm a 24-year-old woman, I am 5'8", I am taller than the average person in the UK, so I am more than likely going to be able to probably fight off whoever this is unless they're stronger than me, because even though I am very tall, my arms are made out of noodles. I have literally no strength in my arms whatsoever. However, if we apply the same situation to a child, they are probably not going to be able to fight them off. Now, this is kind of where the suicide part plays into it. So part of my PhD is looking at kind of how the influence of stigma around suicide and schizophrenia makes mental health stigma in Asian countries even worse than it already is, particularly when a celebrity kills themselves. There's this phenomenon called a suicide contagion, where essentially someone who has a lot of influence kills themselves, and as a result, a lot of people who are maybe fans of that person also kill themselves. The only time this has been proven not to happen is when the person who killed themselves had a bad reputation at the time of their suicide. So what I'm worried about is how dangerous this is going to be for autistic people, because like I said, this practice is never like condemned in the film. Like I said, this is a bad thing, you shouldn't do this. It's kind of welcomed, and Evo kind of tells Kate Hudson's character Zoo that this is actually kind of a good thing, you should be doing this. Because that conversation never happens, it kind of shows that this is an okay thing to do, and I'm kind of worried about what the implications this will mean to people who maybe aren't aware that this isn't a good thing, and they might be influenced by this film. Sia doesn't condemn this in the film, so she, as a public figure with, before this film happened, a fairly good reputation to my knowledge. I don't really know a great deal about her, I don't know. Did she have a bad reputation before? I'm not sure. But it could influence a lot of people to do this, that are just members of the public. If they see someone having a meltdown like this, what are going to be the repercussions if they do this to a child. Like I said, I would probably be okay. Other than being thoroughly traumatized, I would physically probably be fine. But if this happens to a child, like, they're probably gonna get seriously hurt, if not die. You know, that's the be-all end-all of this. They might die if this happens to them. So whilst that suicide contagion is definitely a more extreme example, in terms of mental health, people taking drastic action because of a celebrity influence. So when a celebrity kills himself in South Korea, that can actually jumpstart a lot of people who are already suicidal and were fans of this person to do it themselves. So I don't have any stats to prove that seeing someone pro restraint on television and it not being condemned means that rates of autistic people being pro restraint goes up. I don't have any evidence of that. But because of this contagion, that's the word it's usually used because it's like contagious, you see someone with a lot of influence do it and feel like it's okay to do. I'm worried about the dangerous implications showing this in the film without condemning it could do. I am pretty worried about it, actually, to be honest. So next we're going to talk about the audience this film was made for. So the audience for this film, and Sia has said this herself, is that it was a love letter to the autistic community. So it was a love letter to the autistic community in that she didn't put any subtitles on the film, which was, you know, great. There were no subs available on the YouTube version. Fun times. There wasn't even any auto-generated subtitles. There were no subtitles available. It was like they'd been disabled or something. I don't know what it was exactly, but there were none available. Second of all, the majority of the musical numbers in the film had light strobing in them, which isn't very accessible to people who have autism, because often a lot of people with autism, myself included, do have a sensitivity to lights. So I was just thinking, it's absolutely no wonder that if you're telling the truth and you did hire an autistic person at first to play music, it was no wonder they quit. No wonder they were stressed out because of the lights. Oh my gosh, they must have been so stressed out. I feel so bad for them. Also, in terms of the audience, so like I said in my first video, I usually stay away from things that are going to offend me. For example, I'm a Christian, so I don't go out of my way, obviously, to watch things that are about, you know, promoting atheism. I just don't do it because why would I want to upset myself? I don't want to upset myself. So that was the kind of the reason I wasn't going to watch this at first, but I decided to watch it because I don't have any trauma with prone restraints. But I went into this hoping it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was like, hopefully I won't be offended that much. Boy, was I wrong. Literally the first 5 minutes of the film, I had to restart the film because I literally started it with my mouth open. I was meant to be taking notes for the video as I was watching the film. I wasn't able to for like the first 5 minutes because I was just so offended by Maddie's portrayal of music. Like all the stimming, it was just so offensive to me, and I feel like this fake stimming, and it is fake because she's not autistic, so it's obviously fake, it just increases stigma. Like I don't particularly stim a lot. The only stim I have is when I get excited or anxious. My knees, I kind of clench my knees. So I've never been made fun of for my stimming. However, I know other people who have been made fun of for stimming, and it just increases the stigma. And like, love letter to the autistic community, no it wasn't. This has just served to hurt pretty much everybody, you know? And watching Maddie do all that stimming when she's not autistic, I just found it really insulting. So I didn't get diagnosed with autism until I was 18. And anytime pretty much I've told someone, like 9 times out of 10 I've told someone I'm autistic, they look at me and say, you don't look autistic, you don't sound autistic. Even other autistic people have told me that as well. They're like, oh, you're not, or they've even said I'm not autistic enough, whatever that means. And I've never really understood what they've actually meant by that. But now after I've watched this film, I'm like, is that what they meant? Because I don't act like that, that means I can't be autistic. So I feel like it just increases the stigma and reinforces stereotypes. I do feel like at some points in the film, music is more like a caricature of autism rather than someone who is autistic. And I also do kind of feel that Sia was kind of attempting, and obviously I don't know what she really was attempting to do, to be honest. I don't know, other than try and insult everyone. It seemed, and I'm just interpreting this from the character of music, that music was kind of meant to represent autism as a whole, whereas it really should have been a character with autism rather than just like autism itself. So for example, I have psychosis, and my full official diagnosis is non-organic, unspecified first episode psychosis, but we'll just call it psychosis. And my novel is about psychosis, and I wrote it as a way to help me deal with what was going on. Whilst I understood it, I didn't like it. I found it extremely, extremely scary. You'll know if you've ever heard a voice before, even if you don't have psychosis or something like schizophrenia, you'll know it's extremely, extremely scary. So I wrote my book as a way to help me deal with those feelings I had. So as a result of that, the main character in the book, who is the one who has psychosis, she does emulate what I went through. So she is not meant to be representative of everyone who's ever had psychosis and everyone who will have psychosis ultimately in the future. She's not meant for that. She's not meant to represent every single person ever who's had psychosis. She's meant to she is a person with her own personality, her own likes and dislikes, who just happens to have psychosis. There is more to her than her psychosis. She doesn't represent everyone, and I feel that music, from the way she's written, the way she's acted, was kind of meant to represent everyone. And it obviously doesn't work because autism, like any other mental health condition, is an extremely wide umbrella. So I definitely do feel like the portrayal in the film, like I said, just reinforces stereotypes, increases the stigma. It's not good, and honestly, from an autistic person's perspective, obviously you may disagree with me if you're autistic, but I do sometimes feel that I personally identify with characters more when they weren't intended to be autistic, but the personality they've ended up with, either because of choice by the scriptwriter or a choice by the actor or a combination of the two, has made them come across as autistic. And I quite like that. So for example, Ariel in The Little Mermaid, she comes across as autistic to me. Another example is Aerith in Final Fantasy VII. She also comes across as autistic to me, and as a result I really like those two characters. But this was just... it wasn't good, essentially. That's the short version, not good. Now we're gonna move on to the writing in the film. And let me just say here, even if they had cast an autistic person in this film, the film wouldn't have been good. The representation would have been good, but it still wouldn't have been a good film. It's not a very good film, it isn't written very well, and if you didn't know, Sia is actually in this film as a drug addict, I think? I don't really know. It was a random throwaway scene, didn't make any sense, shouldn't have been in there. If she wanted a cameo, she should have actually put in some effort and written herself a proper character, you know? And also the dialogue, oh my gosh, the dialogue in this film, so bad, so unrealistic, extremely cringeworthy and embarrassing, not naturalistic, just bad all round. And also the flirting between Leslie Odom Jr.'s character, Ebo, and Zoo, which is Kate Hudson's character. Oh god, that flirting was bad. Like, I can't flirt to save my life, but give me a dark and quiet room in at least an hour and I could write you a pretty decent flirting scene, even though I don't really know how to do it in real life. I could write that pretty well, I think. But honestly, most of the dialogue in this was bad, and honestly just the writing in general. The story isn't that compelling. I don't really care about many of the characters. Leslie Odom Jr.'s character was pretty good. I liked him, he was very likeable, I cared about him somewhat. Definitely didn't want him to end up in a relationship with Zoo at the end of the film, because I do view her to be kind of toxic and I didn't like it as a character. She is the main character and at no point was I rooting for her. I was just like, I don't care. At one point in the film, so Music is allergic to bee stings, wasp stings. She gets stung by a wasp and Zoo has to take her to the hospital, and because Music is having some sort of fit due to the allergy, I'm not sure what the proper name for the fit is. It an anaphylactic fit? I'm not sure if that's the right word. But so she's having this fit, and in her panic, Sue forgets her bag. She's a drug dealer, it's full of drugs. And when she goes back later to find the bag, it's not there. She's obviously in trouble because she's lost all these drugs. At no point during that sequence, I've noticed straight away that she lost a bag, and that was going to be a big turning point. I was like, oh, she's gonna not be able to find the bag. There's going to be some repercussions there. At no point did I care about the fact that she lost a bag. I didn't like her, she's extremely unlikable. She only becomes likeable in the final like 5 minutes of the film when they go to Ebo's brother's wedding. That's the only time she becomes somewhat likeable, and even then not really. So yeah, at no point was I rooting for her. I really didn't care about her succeeding. The only time I wanted her to succeed was when she was looking after Music, because I felt bad for her. But other than that, I didn't really care about it. Tell you about one character I did care about though, Felix. So Felix, I'm pretty sure, he has 0 lines in the entire film. He probably has less than 7 scenes, but I cared about him more. So it seems like he's been adopted by this family, and he seems to be quite good friends with music. He's been adopted by this family, but the dad in his adopted family doesn't like him, and the dad is also, he is abusing his wife. And Felix steps in one night to try and stop it. After he's ordered a service dog for music, he steps in to try and stop it, and his dad either injures him severely or literally kills him. Like, he pushes him or punches him so hard he falls back on the floor is tiled, he starts bleeding from his head. We don't see him again in the film apart from in music's head. I cared more about him than about Zoo. And I'm not saying you can't care about a character who doesn't have any lines, but when you have a load of characters that do have lines and a lot more screen time than this one character, you really should be caring about those ones with all the lines, not this other person who's not in it half as much. He was the best character and also one of the best actors in this film. He was great. I have no idea what his name was, but he was amazing. Which just kind of brings me on to, how was this film even nominated at the Golden Globes? Now, I don't put a lot of stock in award shows. My younger brother absolutely loves films. He always knows what's being nominated for stuff. He loves Oscar season. Seeing what films have got nominated. I don't really care though, just because the Oscars, the Golden Globes, it's been proven time and time again that you can pay for a nomination and you can pay to win. So it really just, there's no integrity to those awards. So I just really don't care. Whenever my brother comes up to me like, oh, this was nominated for an Oscar, or this won the Golden Globe for this, I'm like, I don't care. It means absolutely nothing to me. So I'm just rather unsure on how it got nominated. So it got nominated in 2 categories, didn't win. So it got nominated as Best Picture in the comedy/musical category, and as also Kate Hudson got nominated for her role in this as, I think, lead actress. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Like I said, didn't win either one, thank God, but I'm just not sure how they got nominated. Now, I'm not saying that Sia paid for these nominations. I'm not saying that, I have no proof of that, but we already saw this year, if you didn't know, Emily in Paris, a Netflix show that nobody seems to like, I haven't seen it so I can't say if it's good or not, got nominated for Golden Globes after they took a load of people from the committee to Paris during the filming of this and put them up in a luxury hotel. So I'm not saying Sia paid for it, but I also don't understand how this film got nominated when it wasn't that good. Now, I feel that maybe the Golden Globes were like, oh, this film is about autism, it's good representation, we should nominate it on the grounds of that, even though the representation is bad representation. But I just feel they shouldn't have nominated it on the grounds of it's bad representation, essentially. I just, yeah, I don't understand how it was nominated. So yeah, that's that on that. I don't want to speculate anymore because I don't want to be rude about Kate Hudson's acting ability or try and say that Sia paid for this. But yeah, I don't understand this nomination, and I just feel like it was a huge slap in the face to the autism community that even after all this controversy, it still had this nomination, you know? So yeah. The next thing I'm going to talk about is Maddie herself. So even though I was extremely offended by Maddie's portrayal of autism in this film, I don't believe it was her fault. Obviously it was her fault in that she was one who did it. No one kind of made her act like that. But in a way I kind of feel like they did. So like I said before, Maddie is now 18 years old, I believe. However, at the time of filming this, she was 14/15. Now, like I said at the start of the video, I have seen the entirety of Dance Moms. If you don't know what Dance Moms is, it's a reality TV show set in America about some young dancers and their mums at Abby Lee Miller's dance studio called the ALDC. Now, I wasn't there on the set of Dance Moms, so I can't say which bits were truly reality, which bits were made up just for the show. However, Abby, who is the dance teacher and I guess like the main character of the show, she's the one seemingly in control of everything, she does kind of exercise a great deal of power and manipulation over all of the girls but Maddie in particular. So if you don't know, if you never watched it, Maddie was on the show from when it started all the way to halfway through season either 5 or 6. It's been a while since I've seen it. I don't really rewatch Dance Moms a lot, so I can't quite remember. but she was on it for quite a few years of her life. And prior to being on Dance Moms, she also danced pretty much all the time at Abby's studio. So they had a really tight relationship, and Abby did kind of use this to her advantage and kind of manipulated Maddie into doing things that would go against her mum, who's Melissa, on the show. Now again, I can't say how real this was, if it was staged or whatever, I don't know, but it did seem like they had a rather toxic relationship. So Dance Moms was definitely how Maddie first like came to fame. And if you don't know, Dance Moms was like the show Sia spotted Maddie on, and that was how Sia hired Maddie for the Chandelier music video. I can't remember which one was first, I think it was the Chandelier one. And I do think it's really interesting that Sia is actually now Maddie's godmother, if you didn't know. So she definitely, in my opinion, does have this position of power over Maddie, because first of all, we have this relationship she had with this dance teacher who kind of got her that fame in the first place and taught her how to dance, which is how she's got this far. But now Sia has come in and replaced that relationship and has given Maddie even more fame. So I feel if I was Maddie, I'd feel like I would have to do this film, because Maddie was one of the few people on the film set who said, I'm really worried that people are going to think I'm mocking autistic people for doing this. Like, she was like 14, 15 at the time, and she already knew it, and Sia was like, no, don't worry about it, that's not going to happen. Well, it happened, because that's what it comes across. It does look like Maddie is mocking autistic people. So there is a lot more to their relationship than just that, but I will link below a video detailing Maddie's relationships with older women and how they do come across as quite toxic, considering her age gap with everyone. There was a pretty big age gap between her and a dance teacher, and whilst the age gap between her and Sia is smaller, since Sia is younger than the dance teacher, it's still a pretty big age gap, and it just comes across as kind of creepy and slightly manipulative, in my opinion. But obviously I'm not in that relationship, I don't know, but I just feel like, ableism aside, there are more issues going on in this film and kind of like behind the scenes of this film as well. So in conclusion, Sia's response to this film when it released was to say sorry on Twitter, and then she bounced, and by that I mean she deactivated her Twitter account. So to my knowledge, no one has really heard, or at least publicly no one has heard anything from her recently, or at least since the film's release, about the backlash and the criticism of this film. I've read things from Kate Hudson and Maddie Ziegler and Leslie Odom Jr., the three main characters in this film, the actors for the three main characters, and they all kind of seem to be like, yeah, your criticism is fair, we were aware of what we were doing at the time, we understood that not everyone was going to like it, your criticism is fair, whereas Sia has just vanished, essentially. So I'm filming this video the week before it goes up, so maybe Sia will have reactivated her Twitter account by then. I don't know, it's been offline for quite a while now, so I'm not really sure, to be honest. But yeah, I guess I stand by my statement from the first video I made on this, in that I don't believe that Sia made this film with ill intent. I don't believe like she hates autistic people and was doing this because she hated us and she wanted to mock us and make fun of us. But just because you do something without the intention of being malicious, that doesn't mean other people can't get offended by it. Because I was extremely offended by it, and I know a lot of other people have been as well. So I guess, you know, she's got a comeuppance in that anytime someone types in Sia music with the intention of looking for songs by Sia, they're gonna find all of the videos that have been made about this film. And it's not gonna be good for her image, because I haven't seen one video yet. I haven't gone looking for one, but I haven't seen any videos so far that have praised this film. So yeah, I just want to say overall, whilst it would have been great for her to have hired a person with autism to play the role of music, whilst that would have made the film really good for representation, it still wouldn't have been a good film, because this film's script was bad. The acting was okay, the directing wasn't that bad actually, she did a good job as directing. Honestly, she needs to work on her script writing, because she co-wrote the script. The overall story, the story arc, wasn't that good either. Wasn't very interesting, wasn't very compelling. I didn't really care about anyone apart from a character who said nothing. There was only in like 7 scenes. And just like common sense, just in general, like why would you hire a non-autistic person to play someone who's autistic and then just, you know, like, oh, we're already going to hell, so if we're gonna go, let's, you know, go properly. Also make them mixed raced. when the actor you've hired isn't mixed race. I'm not really sure what else to say other than this is a bad film. Even if it had someone who was autistic in it, still would have been a bad film, to be honest. But yeah. I hope everyone has learned their lesson in that. Please, filmmakers, scriptwriters, whoever you are, the next time you're going to write something about autism, please hire an autistic person to play them, and also don't consult with Autism Speaks, who are, if you're not aware, essentially a eugenics group for autism. So yeah, I think that's everything I have to say on the film. But if you're autistic and you weren't offended by the film, that's completely fine. We're not a monolith, we don't have the same thoughts or feelings. If you really enjoy this film, then you really enjoy this film. But I didn't enjoy this film, and I don't feel like I'm alone in that. So anyway, that was all for today. You all better have a good day. That was a threat. I hope you all stay safe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!